Welcome to City Church's On Demand Messages. My name is Josh, and we're so glad that you're tuning in whenever and wherever you're tuning in from. In fact, it's possible that you either stumbled across us online or somebody shared this and you are leading it maybe for the first time. If you have any questions or want to know more about who we are, we'd love for you to visit our website. In fact, if you can even plan your first visit on our website. If you've got kids, we have a kids ministry specifically for them. You can plan your visit. You can go ahead and check them in, learn more about what that will be like. Maybe a middle or high school student, we've got you covered. And so if you have any questions or anything that we can do for you, please just check out our website. Today's message is going to be very special, and we're thankful that you're tuning in. It'll be anywhere from 25 to 30 minutes. And so if we can do anything for you, please let us know. But enjoy today's message.
My name is Warren. Happy summer, guys. Yes, man, let me try that again. Happy summer, guys. Yeah, man, I am a summer person. I'm not going to lie. So long story short, we moved here, my wife and I and our family, to help be a part of planning the church here at City Church 4 years ago. Actually, June Jam was downtown. Did anybody go hang out at June Jam last night? Okay, a few of you did. They had sand downtown, and I walked down there, and there's just like 50 to 100 kids just playing in sand in the middle of downtown on the street. They had the streets blocked off, so there wasn't a car still right through there. But 4 years ago, that was actually the first time we were in Griffin, was June Jam. So my family in here have been here for 4 years in Griffin and just have loved what God has done in our lives and just here at City Church. But we lived in Florida for 15 years, and so in Florida, you have summer. Let me try that again. We have cool summer, hot summer, and wow, it's really, really hot summer. Those are just our seasons in Florida. And so when summer gets here in Georgia, I'm like, this is my thing. I love summer. And so we have moved into a series this summer called Way in the Water. Now, Josh last week taught, and he talked about how like water is not really much his thing when it comes to summer. Guys, if I had the option, like my office would just be, I would be sitting in the water, and I would just work. That's what I would do. I want to be in the water. I want to fish. Whatever I can do, I want to be a part of that. Actually, this summer already, my family and I, we went to Spruill Bluff, which is not a far drive. Check it out. It's beautiful. It's a Flint River. You can tube on it, fish on it. We went there just last week, I think we went there, and we were hanging out in the water. So when it comes to summer, Way in the Water, put me in the water. I want to be there, and I want to be a part of everything involved with the water. And so last week, Josh kicked us off, and he talked about Noah, right? And we went to the story of Noah, which involves a lot of water, probably like the most water we're experiencing in our stories as we move through this summer. And he talked about the fact that God is a just God, but in his justness, he provides a vehicle for rescue. And that vehicle is Jesus. And so this morning, I'm really excited to move us into another story of water that's wrapped around a well, something that maybe there's a few of you that have a little something that you know about a well, but for the most part, our wells are not like the wells that we know that we're going to talk about today. We just turn on a faucet and there's our water, right? That's what we have. But we're going to focus our story around a well today. And so this morning we started with the questions. Our host came up, did an awesome job. If you could have something to drink and have an endless supply of that drink at your house, what would it be? Morgan picked Diet Coke. I'm sorry. Disgusting, okay? Like, it is absolute trash. I'm sorry. It's so bad. Sorry, Morgan. I still love you, okay? For me, it would be coffee. Now, I know what you're saying. Yes, I would just have the shakes all the time, and I would never sleep. But I love coffee. I'm that guy that drinks in the morning, and like 5 o'clock, I'm like, another cup sounds good. And at like 12 a.m., I'm like, nope, that was not a good idea that I drank that cup. But I love coffee. But I would dare say that if you had an endless supply of something like that, at some point, you would maybe get tired of it. I don't know, maybe not. And so I kind of want to take us a little bit deeper this morning. Have you ever thought in your life that something or someone would bring fullness to your life? That something would fill everything that you needed, the demand you have in your life, that something or someone would fill that need in your life. Only to find that once you had that something or had that someone, that you still felt empty. Can I tell you this morning that I've been there? I've been in a space where that's been my life. Past, not too far, past way back, I've been in that space before. And this morning, I'm excited to invite someone up this morning who's going to share his experience with that a little bit. Can you guys welcome Jonatas this morning for me? Jonatas, come on up, man. This is Jonatas. Oh, you have a mic in your hand. We can fist bump. There you go. I like it. This is Jonatas, everybody. He is our ministry resident. And you're like, what does that mean? I don't
Exactly.
understand that. Well, what that means is as a church, we believe and affirm the call that Jonatas has to ministry. And so for 2 years, we're almost through year one. Jonatas has joined in with us, got a ministry experience, had leadership training, has gotten involved and plugged in, gotten experience. Now this morning up here, you've been on stage in a panel before,
Yes.
but this is your first time up here like teaching.
Yeah, feels different
And
for sure.
so Jonatas is with us, and I want to say, man, we are so proud of you, and we love you deeply, and we're so thankful for the impact you are making here at City Church and the gifts that God has given you, and for your sweet family, your wife AC,
thank
and your new little boy, and Hazel as well, your little girl. So
Yeah, thanks.
yeah. So we asked this question: have you been in a place in your life before where you've sought after something or someone, hoping that it would fill your life, but you came up empty? Have you ever had a space like that in your life before?
Yes, me being here today.
Okay.
So to understand that, you will need to understand a little bit about who I am and my story. So by now, you have realized I'm not from here. I don't know if my accent gave in or not. So I'm from Africa. I'm what many people will call a third culture adult. So my makeup as a person is made out of 3 different cultures. So I'm Congolese by birth. I was born in Congo, Africa. I'm Angolan of nationality. Both my parents are Angolans. I was raised there, and they still live there to this day, my parents and 3 siblings. And when I turned 18, so from my late teen years, early adulthood, I moved to South Africa. So somewhere in there, that's where I met my wife, the most beautiful Silent Belle I've seen. So I literally remember going into the room, we had just become classmates, and going into the classroom, and I saw this red-haired woman, which I've never seen before, and she was wearing cowboy boots, which I've never seen before either. So I was very excited. We became friends, then we started dating. So not long after we started dating, we started talking about engagement, a very sudden way of doing things. And we decided that the United States would be the best place for us to start our small family, which has grown very fast since then. So coming to America was super excited. There are 4 things, a few things I want to check in, like Cheesecake Factory, very important.
Yeah.
So the idea of having a place that has more than 10 cheesecakes in display just sounded like heaven for me. I'm a cheesecake person. I want to check Waffle House, because, you know, it's America, and all the Americans in my life really spoke highly of Waffle House, so it is 5-star cuisine experience. It was something. As an irony, Warren and I, we met at Waffle House this morning.
We did.
So, but also really, the whole idea, the whole world knows that America is the land of opportunities. That's how America is portrayed outside. And I was excited just to come in and finally find this one thing I'll be doing for the rest of my life, the next 30, 40 years till I retire, right? And to be honest, I didn't quite find that. America wasn't quite fulfilling, right? So I led in 2019. 2020 COVID hit, right? So in 2020, not at once, but I quarantined a span of 7 weeks to 1 room. All right, so that wasn't really fun at all. So at the end of the day, America didn't really fulfill.
America was not a fulfilling.
No,
as you
it
thought would
wasn't.
be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing all that, man. It's so cool to hear your story and to hear how God has brought you, but also your hopes that America would be that thing, but did not quite do what you thought it would do. I can agree with you. So there's things in my life. I think one of the biggest things for me, especially in my beginning part of my life, was sports. Like I always was like chasing the next thing when it came to sports. Somewhere in my life, guys, I'll be honest with you, I thought I was going to be in the NBA. All right, maybe at some point someone thought they would be doing something of that sort. And so that was like my dream and I chased it. And that was my thing. I was like, hey, this will bring filling in my life. So if we probably can all agree at some point we've chased something, left ourselves and felt empty. So why is that the case, Jonatas? Why do you feel like that happens that way?
Yeah, I really believe in part of that is human nature. So in high school, I had economics. And studying economics, I encountered this economic term, unlimited wants. What it really pretty much means is that we human beings always want something else. We always want more. We're never really satisfied, right? Now, that term is contrasted with a different term, which is limited resources. which pretty much means whatever is available to satisfy our wants, both in nature or manufactured, is limited to a certain proportion. Examples, we have natural gas. I've heard that whenever it snows in Georgia, there's a limited supply of bread and milk. So it seems like everybody wants to have French toast. And during COVID, classic, toilet paper. It's just a classic one. So really, to be honest, the demand for fulfilling life is greater than the supply that we can find in this world. That's both physically and spiritual, really, Warren.
Yeah, so the world's supply can never fill our life's demands. Like, there's just no way that's possible. Everything the world has to supply at some point cannot meet life's demands. How many of you can be honest and you're like, there was a point where I had toilet paper scare? Is there anybody out there? I mean, I was one. There was a point where I was like, hey, friend, can I get some toilet paper? Like, I hit that point. It was just gone. It was crazy. Yep. So when we think about this supply and this demand, and it's so great, right? Our demand is so great, and the supply is not enough. What do we do? Because I think, like we said, everyone in this room has probably been in a place where you can relate. So maybe you're here this morning, and you know Jesus, and at some point you found Jesus, and that supply that he offered was enough. But maybe you've been through spaces or in places where you've sought after other things, and you have felt like, hey, I'm missing that fullness to life. And maybe you're here this morning and you don't know Jesus. I want to say we're so glad you're here this morning, like so thankful that you're here. Maybe you got asked to come, maybe you just showed up randomly, but maybe you're here because you're searching and you're looking and you're like, I need something different in my life. So I think at some point we can all relate. So the question that we have, Jonathan, is if this is the case, if the supply does not meet the demand, where do we go and what do we do?
Yeah. So interestingly enough, there's a story of a woman in the Bible who is walking this journey, right, of trying to find this one thing that will fulfill her. And her moment of realizing that is around a well in the Bible. So this well was located in a city called Samaria, and Samaria was a city in mountain areas. So, which meant two things. They were well protected, of course, because of the enemies. They were like in an advantage area. And it was hard to find water as well, because it was rocky land, so they had to dig wells. So at that city, there is one well that's mentioned in the scripture that we're about to read as well. Now, at the time of the events we're about to read, the well had existed for a whole 1,800 years. So they maintained a well for a whole 1,800 years because that was their living, right? So had water for drinking, cooking, imagine water from the cattle, garden, anything came from that well. And I have a personal experience with that. So growing up in Angola, my sister and I, we had to go fetch water from the well. So we would walk anything from maybe half a mile to even more, depending on the season, and if there's drought or if it didn't rain much during rainy season. So we only have like rainy season and really, really hot season. Yeah. I mean, different from Florida, but same thing. So that perspective, my sister would get water for the kitchen, so for drinking and cooking. I would get water for bathing and for laundry, other things, right? So this story, we're gonna pick up in John 4. So from verse 1 to 3, pretty much it just shows how Jesus had started to experience persecution from the Pharisees, who were the religious leaders of the time. So then Jesus and his disciples, they decide to leave one location to go to another location at the time. So we're picking up from verse 4 in chapter 4 here of the book of John. So, and we're going to have that on the screen, I believe so. Awesome. So let me pick up from verse 3. He left Judea and departed again for Galilee. And he had to pass through Samaria. So he came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there, so Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. It was about the 6th hour. So right here, there are about two things that are really crucial for us to grasp in order to understand what's happening here, this encounter around the well, right? So verse 4 says, he had to pass through Samaria. So the person who wrote the book, John, is trying to put emphasis in here and doesn't explain much about it. He kind of just drops in our life. He had to go through Samaria. So if you were living at the time, and you would fully understand what John meant by that. So Jesus and his disciples were a part of a group of people called the Jews, all right? And there were another group of people called the Samaritans. Guess what? They lived in Samaria. So the Samaritans and the Jews, they really shared centuries of history of hatred between one another. One, because they just have religious differences, and another one really because the Jews considered the Samaritans inferior. They were not pure Jews. They weren't like as good as they were. So there was a complex of superiority and inferiority in play in there as well. So right there in these passages, we see that Jesus had to go through Samaria. Jews wouldn't do that for two reasons. They hated the Samaritans, and the Samaritans hated them. So that made it a very dangerous journey. So we will have a map here on the screen, and that you can see it as well. So pretty much, Jesus is right here in the bottom, and he's trying to make his way up here in Galilee. So we have Jews living here, but the Samaritans right here in the middle. So they were just a pain for the Jews, pretty much. And in order for a normal Jews, which Jesus wasn't, to avoid Samaria, they would either go around it, which would take about 5 to 7 days of walking by feet. So they would cross the river here, go up, and then cross another river, and they were in Galilee. So it would be 5 to 7 days of walking, plus a lot of money, because you had to pay the boat to cross the river. Second option would be somewhere here by the coastal area, which was pretty dangerous because you had to walk through the dunes. That would take more than 7 days, and you risk getting lost somewhere there in the dunes in the desert as well. The easiest way would really be through Samaria, which would be 3 days of walking by feet. But the Samaritans hated you, and you hated them too, so you wouldn't take that journey. So we can see that either the Jews were willing to pay a lot of money, or they were willing to put themselves in danger just not to go through Samaria.
To avoid the Samaritans.
Just to avoid the Samaritans. So it begs the question, so if the Jews hated the Samaritans this much, why did Jesus go through Samaria? So I really think this is the beauty of us in the 21st century getting to read the Bible, right? The next two stories in John shows us how Jesus is trying to encounter people who at the time were considered social outcasts, people who did not belong. So based on those, we really can see that Jesus has so much intentionality in going through Samaria and trying to have this encounter with the woman at the well.
Yeah, I think that shows us really this, because we're going to find this story as Jesus and this woman meet at the well. And I think it's so important for us, those of us that are followers of Jesus and those of us maybe that are, again, here and don't know Jesus, that Jesus meets us where we are. Jesus meets you where you are. And so Jesus' purpose, right, and he should have avoided, it was the normal cultural thing, but Jesus is headed to this Samaritan woman. So Jesus meets you where you are. So it happens that we find Jesus and this woman, and not only are they meeting at this well, Jesus shouldn't be there because he's a Jew, but we also find that they're meeting at an odd time. So in the book of John, chapter 4, verse 5 through 7, we see in the verse 6, where you just read, that it says it was about the 6th hour. So we find a specific time. So Jesus is not avoiding the Samaritans. He's meeting at a appointed time, but this is also an odd time to be at the well. What from Scripture tells us this is kind of an odd time, but also from even your experience?
Yeah, it is so odd because at the time, if you're a good person of faith, you prayed 3 times a day. Really, really early morning before you leave your house, do your stuff. right at afternoon and then just late afternoon or towards evening, right? So the 6 hour for the Jews, that was 12 o'clock for us, right at noon, where the sun is shining and it's hot, right? So people were praying at the time at noon where this woman is trying to go to the well.
Yeah.
So it really shows like it shows that she's trying to avoid people. We learn also in the passage that she was really trying to avoid people because of her lifestyle. And two, really, I know, everybody back home knows, if you got to get water from the well, you go early morning or late afternoon because it is just hot at noon. I usually prefer to go in the afternoon because I like to sleep in. Now I have 2 babies.
Yeah, you don't sleep in anymore.
Ask
do
me
you?
more about that. No, they don't understand the weekend. It's a tragedy. But yeah, so this is like from my own experience, right? So let me see here.
Yeah, so we see in John chapter 4 where this woman, she's coming at this time. It's an odd time, but she's also avoiding people. And so the book of John chapter 4, verse 16 through 18, what does that say to us?
So it says, Jesus said to her, "Go call your husband and come here." The woman answered him, "I have no husband." Jesus said to her, "You are right in saying, 'I have no husband,' for you have had 5 husbands, and the one you now have is not your husband." So we learned from this passage that she had 5 husbands, and the 6th man she was with wasn't her husband to start up with. And because of that, it would just create this cultural tension amongst her and other women. So nobody wanted to be associated with her. I don't want other people to think that I have the same issues that she has. And she was just really looked down on society. But at the same time, it shows that she was looking for something. Husband after husband after husband. She was searching for something. But also here, it just shows us that it revealed that in Jesus, she was open to find this something that Jesus had to offer her.
Yeah, so it's unique, right? This story we find Jesus is somewhere where he's really not technically supposed to be in culture. We find a woman who's not supposed to be there during this time technically at the well because it's not the normal time to be at the well, maybe avoiding the time of prayer, avoiding people as well. And so what does this mean? What does this unappointed time mean, right? We just said Jesus meets you where you are. Yeah. And here's a woman who's going through something and she's looking for fulfillment. And so here's what we find in John chapter 4, verse 7 through 10. A woman from Samaria came to draw water. So here's our space of water. Here we are at the well. Jesus is there, and Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. And so it's just Jesus and this woman. And in verse 9, the Samaritan woman said to him, "How is it that you," right, this is what we just addressed, she's curious too, "why is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews have no dealings with the Samaritans." She knew right away, like, this is not a normal thing. You're at the well, I'm a Samaritan, you're a Jew, why are you asking me? And in verse 10, Jesus answered her, "If you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would have asked him," so talking about Jesus himself, "and he," Jesus, "would have given you living water." So here we have this answer. It's starting to come to fruition why these two are meeting, why Jesus has come here, why the woman has come this time. And I love in this moment that Jesus just asked her a simple question. So here's this woman who doesn't know him, and Jesus just has come at this time of day when no one else is, and she's there to avoid people, and Jesus just says, "Hey, will you give me something to drink?" And then she says in verse 9, we just read it again, right? "How is it that you, a Jew, ask me for a drink?" Like, I don't get it, I don't understand it. And then Jesus' response is, hey, if you knew the gift of God, right? That's key. You knew the gift of God, and who it is that's saying to you, "Give me a drink," you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. So when we look at this, why is this important? Jesus is answering something I think we need to pay attention to, and sometimes we miss, right? We miss, those of us that are followers of Jesus, we miss what's right in front of us. And even if you're here today and you don't know Jesus, we hope you don't miss what's right in front of us. And so what happens to this woman when he responds this way, right? He's a Jew, she's a Samaritan, she's already confused, and then he's like, "Hey, I got something for you. I've got living water. If you knew, you would have asked me for drink." And so she's confused. How does she respond?
Yeah. So I think in her mind right here, she goes to the whole demand and supply thing, right?
Yeah.
So in John 11, the woman said to him, "Sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get that living water?" Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us the well and drank from it himself, as did his sons and his livestock. So we can see right here that she's wrestling with this idea
Yeah.
of Jesus and the living water. I'm like, dude, you don't have a bucket and it's super deep, right?
Yeah.
But I love how Jesus was so graceful with here. Jesus is talking her language, is showing an illustration that she would fully comprehend, but at the same time, is leaving her space to wrestle with the faith. I believe that's what she's wrestling with right here. You don't have a bucket,
Yeah.
but you're saying you're gonna give me this living water. So she's wrestling with that.
Yeah, I think if we could like put that in our terms, it would be if our supply makes sense on paper,
Yeah.
the supply won't last. And that's what she's trying to figure out. Like, hey, you don't have a bucket, I don't get it. How can you give me water? And so in verse 12, we find this. It says this, how can you offer better water, right? This is the Samaritan woman speaking to Jesus again. How can you offer better water than he and his sons, talking about the fact that this is Jacob's well that they've maintained for 1,800 years as animals will enjoy? And Jesus replied, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. And so Jesus is beginning to unfold to this woman, hey, this physical supply cannot meet the demand that you really have. The conversation he had with her later in the passage about the husbands and the men, the relationship she had been chasing, could not meet the demand that she needed. And so it's really important that we don't miss in verse number 12, what he says here, verse 12 through 14, you'll see it on the screen, that anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again. Because here's the thing, the world's supply, right? The world's supply can never satisfy the demand of our soul. So what the world has to offer in any shape or form, something or someone, the world's supply can never satisfy the demand of our soul. So probably like 2 months ago, I started trying to drink a gallon of water a day. It's not easy, guys, all right? And your day is interrupted a lot by some things that happen when you drink a gallon of water a day. And so, but can I tell you something? The day and the gallon of water supply the day before, guess what I needed still the next day?
You need some more.
I still needed water.
And more
The
restaurants.
demand of the resources from the day before did not meet the demand of the resources I needed the next day. And so the world's supply can never meet the demand specifically of our soul. It can quench the present thirst, but it will return. And so it's really important that we understand that what the world supplies can never meet that demand. And so when we ask that question at the beginning of the message, what have you run to that's left you empty? This is what we mean. This is the space that I think that we all have been to, or maybe we're in now, where we're choosing something or someone to fill our lives, but we keep coming back empty. And here's what Jesus does in the life of this woman. Here's what he does. We go back to that passage and we see a word, and that word is give. And so Jesus says, he says, but those who drink the water I give. So he's referring to himself. I give will never be thirsty again. How would you feel if you could have something, right, that never left you thirsty again? Like just never, ever you hit a point again when you're never thirsty. You see, Jesus isn't talking about physical water here. He's talking about our souls, the fullness of life itself. And this word give in its original context in Greek, it means this, all right, to give from one's self. And so when Jesus is talking to this woman and he says, the water that I give, he's not talking about water from the well. He's talking about giving from his actual self. And here's the thing that makes Jesus' supply different from the world's supply. Because the thing is this, the demand of our souls can only be met with an endless supply. The demand from our souls, my soul, your soul, the demand of your life can never be met with a supply that is limited, but only a supply that's endless. And so when Jesus says, give of myself, he's talking about giving of himself, the one who created water, the one who gave his life. He brings fullness. And so this woman hears these things, right? And says, okay, this is great, because when we hear this, it's like life can be filled with an endless supply, and that endless supply is Jesus. What was her reaction?
Yeah, she doesn't hesitate. On verse 15, she said, please, sir. The woman said, give me this water. Then I will never be thirsty again, and I won't have to come here to get water.
Yeah, and so she's still She doesn't want to hesitate because it sounds so good, because I don't have to worry about scheduling my life to avoid people. She's still kind of thinking to that physical. And then we see this story progress. And Jesus begins to share with her what her life is and what she's chasing, those relationships that we talked about. And her life changes so much that she runs to the town to tell the people she's been trying to avoid about Jesus.
The same thing she started avoiding is what she started running towards.
Is what she started running towards. So I told you earlier that one of the things that I chased when I was younger was sports. And so I've got something I want to share with you today. This is a championship trophy. GCAA basketball Class 2A Region 3 champions 1999-2000 right here. Hold it up. Basketball right here, guys. Hey, thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. So I would have been in high school when I got this. Don't try to figure out my age right now. And we won this championship, and then guess what we wanted to do the next year? Win the championship again. Got the opportunity to go to college, played a little basketball. Guess what I wanted to do there, right? Win the championship. Nothing wrong with that. But it was chasing the next thing. And you know what's really crazy about this trophy? So my high school actually closed. It's okay, my diploma's still legit, guys. My high school closed, and it's on my resume that I still have a high school diploma. Shut down, and they started selling off all the trophies and all the things. And guess how many people wanted this trophy? 0. No one. They didn't care. Why? Because they're chasing something else. My dad actually works at the church that the school had, and so he was like, hey, I got this for you, son, which is cool, you know. But, Dad, thank you for doing this for me. You know where this has been at my house? In the garage. See, we can spend a lot of our lives going to the well, looking for something to fill us, looking for something that will give us a fullness of life. For the woman, it was relationships. For you, it was coming to America. For me, it was sports. And keep coming up empty. And so my question for you, and Jonathan's question for you is, what is your well? What is your well? Where are you going daily, trying to find the fullness of life, trying to find the supply that will meet your demand? Is it relationships? Is it addiction? Is it shopping? Because Amazon could get things to you 2 days, and that's pretty fulfilling. Is it social media? What is it that you are pursuing, hoping that the supply will meet the demand of your life? And maybe in this moment you're feeling a little bit guilty. Like, Warren, if you just knew the things I was chasing right now. Hey, know this right now. Jesus knows, but Jesus is there. You don't have to change and get things all ready to go before you can go to Jesus. No, he is there, ready and willing to give of himself for you.